හිටියා 8:15 ඉඳලා. නමුත් කවුරු ලොග් වෙලා හිටියේ නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ මම log off වුණා. මොකද නිකන් රෙකෝඩ් වෙවි තිබුණේ හින්දා. ඊට පස්සේ මට කෝල් එකක් ආවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ බැච් එකකින්. මම login වුණාම ඒත් එක්කෙනා හිටියේ online. හරි. ඒතර අපේ මේ lecture එක start කරන්නේ 8:30. 8:00 තමයි. So we are starting the lecture at 8:30. And what the coordinator informed me was there is no Wednesday class. Right? There's no Wednesday class. There will be only Friday morning class. Right? So the Wednesday class එකක් නැහැ. Friday morning class එකක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. හරි? So we have done 1 hour on Wednesday. So today we'll do 3 hours. Right? Because it's only 4 hours per week. Right? तर අපි පැයක් කරා බදාදා. ඒක නිසා අපි අද පැය 3ක් කරා. හරි. එතකොට ඒක හරි. හරි. Right. So we were discussing, I introduced you. So good morning to all of you. So we started our lectures on Wednesday, this Wednesday, and I introduced you to network programming. හරි එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොටම සුබ උදෑසනක්. එතකොට අපි Wednesday තමයි පටන් ගත්තේ මේ lecture series එක. එතකොට මේ lecture series එකේ මම ඉස්සෙල්ලාම network programming එක introduction එක දුන්නා. So here we learn, so I'll just go through what we have been discussing so far, right? And then we will, right? So we will go through what we have been discussing so far, and then we will look into new areas, right? So what we told was that the network engineers today, they only have a lot of networking skills, but very little programming skills. Right? Rather network engineering කෙනෙක් ගත්තොත් එයාට networking skills ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. සාපේක්ෂව programming skills ගොඩක් අඩුයි. However, if you can see the network, that network has evolved over time. Right? So network එක ගත්තොත් network එක කාලයත් එක්ක ගොඩක් වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා. So you can see this was the very basic network we had at the beginning. Right? ඒතර මේ තමයි මුලින්ම තිබුණ සරලම network එක. Then virtualization slowly crept into the networks. Right? ඒතර virtualization කියන එක මේ networks එකට තිබුණා. So you find blade switches, the blade switches, server windows. So from server windows we got blade switches, and then the network became very fully fledged, right? Fully fledged with virtualization, Linux bridges, so see virtual switches, virtual machines, Linux bridges and containers. Along with that came cloud, right? So you have cloud exchanges, connecting everything via the cloud using virtual machines, containers. And in addition to that, you find new additions coming into the network like load balancers, firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, domain name systems, right? Like so the ඔයගොල්ලෝ පේනවා මේ network එක එන්න fully complete setup එකක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා, right? එතකොට cloud එකත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා මේක ගොඩක් versatile වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම load balancers, firewall, IPS, DNS gateways දේවල් එක්ක. So of course, up to now, we have been concentrating, network engineers have concentrated on maybe half of the data link layer, network layer and the transport layer. එතකොට අපි පොඩ වෙලාවට network engineers ලා විදියට concentrate කරේ මේ layers ගැන. ඒ කියන්නේ data link එකේ භාගයක් network layer, transport layer වගේ layers. අනිත් layers ගැන වැඩි අපි හොයන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. හරිද? But this will not be the case in the future. Right? අනාගතයේදී මෙහෙම කරන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Because you can see how the networking has evolved over. The networking කියන එක evolve වෙලා තියෙන හැටි අපිට පේනවා කාලයත් එක්ක. So from Stone Age to Programmable Age, you see a huge difference, right? So what you have learned or will be learning on internet network switching and internet network routing will be applicable, right? Will not be obsolete, but they will be applicable, but in a different sense. So the other ඉගෙන ගන්න network switching and internet network switching and internet network routing කියන ඒවා obsolete වෙන්නේ නෑ. ඒවත් එක්කම තමයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේ programming skill එක අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ. ඒතකොට මම අද කතා කරන්න මොකද්ද මේ programming වල ඔයගොල්ලන්ට දැනගත යුතු දේ. So why we need to go to the programmable age is because of the digital transformation and the digitization of the enterprise. Right? Digital transformations are digitization of the enterprise. So we are going up with the app economies, right? So for everything you see, there are apps, right? And then there are other technologies coming in like Internet of Things, and then there are a lot of players entering into the space, right? Digital space. So it's not just the massive technical providers like the internet service providers, but there will be a lot of small developer communities or developer organizations, enterprises entering into the market. එතකොට මේ සියලුම transformation එක සියලුම මේ networking එක මෙහෙම evolve වෙන්නේ මෙහෙම පරිණාමණය වෙන්නේ හේතුව තමයි මේ digital transformation කියන අලුත් පෙරළිය. තර ලෝකයේ ගොඩක් transformations වුණා. Agriculture transformation, industrial transformation, internet transformation. ඊළඟට එන transformation එක තමයි digital transformation. ඒකත් එක්කම app economy කියන්නේ ගොඩක් apps වලින් තමයි අපි වැඩ කරන්නේ. ඊළඟට අලුත් තාක්ෂණයන electronic of things. ඊළඟට මේ area එකේ වැඩ කරන එක organization කීපයක් මේ තියෙන ගොඩක් organizations තියෙනවා. tech unicorns. මොකද tech unicorn කියන්නේ එහෙම. ඒක කියන්නේ ඕන කෙනෙක්ට මේ space එකට enter වෙන්න. The large service providers වලට නෙමෙයි ඕනම කෙනෙක්ට startup එකක් හදාගෙන ඕගොල්ලන්ටත් පුළුවන්. හරි ඕගොල්ලෝ as individuals ඕගොල්ලන්ටත් පුළුවන් අලුත් startup එකක් හදාගන්න මේ digital space එකට එකතු. So as we had many transformations in the world, right, obviously like agriculture transformation, then industry transformation, then internet transformation, we now have the digital transformation. So this will be a huge leap forward. So if you didn't have the pandemic, you would have felt this digital transformation in a massive scale. And I thought අපිට මේ කොයි 19 සංගතයේ තිබුණ නැත්නම් මේ digital transformation එක්ක ගොඩක් දැනෙනවා. ඒත් අපිට මේ digital transformation කියලා දැන් අපිට ගොඩක් දැනෙනවා. especially අපිට මේ දෙක කරන education එක අපි online කරන්නේ. ඒකත් digital transformation එකක්. ඊළඟට banking sector එක අපිට දැනෙනවා ගොඩක් digital transformations. හරි එතකොට ගොඩක් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රීස් වල digital transformation අපිට දකින්න හම්බෙයි. So you can see digital transformation happening in education. So even this lecture is conducted online, and so you can see digital transformation in the banking and insurance sectors, right? And there are also digital transformations in many other areas, right? In many other areas. Okay, so in this case, so cloud will be so we will be leveraging the cloud, right? But how you leverage it is dependent on your capabilities. එතකොට අපි cloud එක තමයි leverage කරන්නේ. එතකොට ඒක leverage කරන්න නම් අපි the capabilities හදාගෙන ඉන්නේ. So maybe that if you do it well, you will end up with the cloud that you wanted to build, right? So that's the real unicorn, tech unicorn. But if you build something lesser because of lack of skills or something like that, then you get a donkey corn. You get a donkey corn. So අපි cloud කියන එක තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. ඒතර අපි හරියට cloud එක leverage කරොත් අපේ skills එක අපිට අවශ්‍ය කරන concept අවශ්‍ය cloud එක දෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි අපි එහෙම කරන්නේ නැත්නම් අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම donkey corn එක තමයි වඩපත් වෙන්නේ. අපිට එහෙම ලොකුවට cloud එකෙන් leverage කරන්න. So of course, this is not a welcome area for most of you, but as you can see, it's not tough. Right? Let's see. As you envision, but maybe එහෙම ලොකුවට tough එකක් නෙමෙයි. ඔයගොල්ලෝ කොහොමත් මේක එච්චර හොඳින් මේක ග්‍රහණය කරගන්නේ නැහැ මුලදී. නමුත් පසු කාලේන ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේකේ වටිනාකම තේරෙයි. බලන්න නැතුවම බැරි යක් බවට මේක පත් වෙනවා. So first of all, you will not like this change. You will be very angry, or you will deny it, or sometimes you will bargain with your bosses. Sometimes you will also feel impressed, but ultimately you will have to accept it. That's the trend. So the මුලදී ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේකට එච්චර කැමති වෙන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් ultimately ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේක තේරුම් අරගෙන මේක accept කරනවා. So of course, to become a network engineer in the programmable age, you have to go in phases. Right? You have to go in phases. You cannot do it straight, right? So you'll have to first go with programmable skills and learn other things, right? So we will have to then balance. ඔබ දන්නවද මගේ මේ headset එක පොඩ්ඩක් ඇමරි හැදුවා. Right. So you have to go in phases, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So this is one of the ways that you can approach programmability for become a network engineer in the programmable age, right? And of course, there are lots of areas that you'll have to concentrate. But since you don't have any idea about this thing, you start from scratch, right? And then proceed, right? Of course, we will not be able to cover everything, but as much as possible, we'll try to cover. Right. So now you will have to learn some programming, right? Not to the extent software development friends are doing, right? We are not going into that hardcore kind of program, right? Because we are going with Python. So Python is a very easy language to learn, easy language to deal with, right? We are not going with C# or Java, which are actually a little bit cumbersome to learn. But we are going with languages like Python and other related things. We will look into new areas and we'll set up our development environment. So I'm still thinking whether we are going with Windows or Linux. So I have to make the decision during the weekend. So because now you can see we need to have Linux skills, right? So I think it's better we go with Linux, right? So I'll check on that. I'll decide on that during the weekend, right? Whether we'll go with Windows or Linux, but maybe I'll talk both, right? Maybe we'll look into Linux version like CentOS, right, which is quite popular. So let's check. So I think the long term, if you go with Linux, will be better. So I'll decide on that during the weekend and make a move. So ඔයගොල්ලෝ පේන network engineer කෙනෙක් වෙන්න programmable age එකේ අපිට යම් phases වලින් තමයි යන්න වෙන්නේ. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ටිකක් හරි වාසනාවක්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ programming course එකකට තමයි මේක උගන්වන්නේ. So යුනිවර්සිටි course එකකට තමයි උගන්වන්නේ. දැන් අපි වගේ අයට ඒක course එකක් කියලා නැහැ කරන්නේ. ඒකට අපිට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඉන්ටර්නෙට් රිසෝසස් වලින් තමයි ඉගෙන ගන්න වෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ තාපකින් වාසනාවන්ත මොකද ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කවුරු හරි කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා ගයිඩ් කරන්න. හරි මොකද අපි තනියම ඉගෙන ගන්න ගියහම අපිට එහෙම one source එකක් නැහැ මේක ඉගෙන ගන්න. ඒකට අපිට ගොඩක් sources එකක් බලන්න වෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම අපිට පාත් එක හදාගන්න වෙනවා. especially දැන් මේ course එක ගෙනියන කෙනාට මට පාත් එක හදාගන්න වෙනවා. මොකද නැත්තම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ මේක ඩිලිවර් කරනකොට. එතකොට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අපිට Windows කරන්න පුළුවන් බැරි කමක් නැහැ. නමුත් ඔයාලට පේනවා මේ phase 2 and phase 3 වල Linux network interface ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඒ බලමු අපි Windows වලින් යනවාද නැත්නම් අපි Linux වලින් යනවාද කියලා. නැත්නම් අපි දෙකම බලමු. right? options දෙකක් බලමු. ඒක Linux කරනවා නම් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අපි virtual box එකකින් කරන්න ඕන. ඒක ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපේ machines Windows. බලමු අපි ඒක. So we'll have to learn new networking skills also. Other networking skills then ගන්න වෙනවා ඊළඟට code programming ගැන. So I told you so I told you that Cisco offers many different certifications. So for the programmable age, right, real tech era, they had these things. I'm not saying it's not relevant today. Even today, Cisco is offering CCNA, CCNP, and CCIE. Right? So it's not that they have become obsolete, but with the new age of programmability, Cisco has also offered another certification. So even if you do this certification track, it's better that you also do this certification track. There are different tracks. So if you have this kind of certification today over this one, so that will be of immense help for you, right? And you will be highly employable. Right? You will be able to have more capabilities to work in the network. Right? Cisco certifications කරද්දී ඒගොල්ලෝගේ certifications කීපයක් තියෙනවා. තමයි real pure engineering, you can CCNA, CCNP, CCIE. Then the next ඊළඟට DevNet. එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ පේනවා මේ ට්‍රැක්ස් දෙකම සිස්ටම් දැනට අප කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අර CCM කියන ඒවා ඔබ්සෙට් වෙලා නැහැ. ඒ ට්‍රැක්ස් දෙකම මේ අප කරනවා. හැබැයි මේ DevNet කියන එක ගොඩක් අවශ්‍ය වෙන ඔටෝමේෂන්. ඒ කියන්නේ ගොඩක් repetitive tasks automate කරන්න තමයි අපි මේ DevNet කියන ඉගෙන ගන්න. ඒක තමයි එතන පරමාර්ථය. එතකොට ඒ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි manually කරන දේවල් repetitive tasks ඒවා automate කරනවා. So that's the issue. You are going to be programmable capable. There are programmable capability ko hadaganne. Right? Programmable capability ko hadaganne. එතකොට මේ එකට ගොඩක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට keyboard කරන් කමිට් කරන්න at least 1000 hours කියන්නේ අපිට මේ course එකේ නෑ 1000 hours වෙන මේ module එකේවත් නෑ 1000 hours දැන් අයිද ඔය entire course එකේ මම දන්නේ 1000 hours නෙවෙයි හරි එතකොට පොඩ වෙන ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගොඩක් දේවල් ඔයගොල්ලෝ තනියම කරගන්න වෙනවා මේක දැනගෙන ඉන්න. ඒක ඔයාලට පේනවා history එකේ ගොඩක් technologies absorb ගොඩක්. ඒක එක්කම මේ software වලින් ගොඩක් ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ IT infrastructure absorb. Softwareization කියන්නේ. ඊළඟට ඔයාලට පේනවා මේ path එක ඔයගොල්ලන්ට developer කිව්වහම ඕගොල්ලෝ software specialization කට්ටිය වගේම නෙමෙයි. ඊට වඩා ගොඩක් වෙනස් විදිහකට ඒ ඊට වඩා hardcore නෙමෙයි. නමුත් යම් ප්‍රමාණයකට මේක ඊළඟට ගොඩක් technologies ගැන මම කියනවා. ඒකට SDN software defined networking කියන්නේ මේ වගේ එකක්වත් control layer and data plane එක වෙනස් කරන එකක්වත් නෙමෙයි. ඒකේ ගොඩක් මේ වගේ අපි කියවා වගේ මුළු stack එකම ඉගෙන ගන්න වෙනවා. ඒ size එක ඒක උඩ තවත් layers වගේ තියෙනවා. මේවා තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ core learning skills. Right? So when you are learning programmability, software defined network will come, but it's not like this. It's not something on top of the application here, or separating the control plane and the data plane of your network. But it is about learning about all the layers of the website, as well as on top of applications there will be additional things that you have to learn. So it's quite a challenge, but you'll have to really undergo. So you'll have to have basic course concepts, as well as depending on where you are going to work, you will have to select the relevant technologies that you have to know. එතකොට මෙතන core concepts වගේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉගෙන ගන්න තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව ඔයගොල්ලෝ work කරන්න යන environment එක ගන්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ select කරන්න ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ areas. So that was the introduction given on Wednesday. Introduction on Wednesday. So today we will be looking at view area, right? Which is again today also I will be looking at some important concepts, right, for programming. But programming fundamentals area එක තමයි පටන් ගන්න. ඒකට ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අවශ්‍ය කරන knowledge එක තමයි අපි ගොඩක් දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු. Right. So first of all, so we will be learning programming fundamentals next. අපි ඊට පස්සේ ඉගෙන ගන්න programming fundamentals. ඒතර මේක ඉගෙන ගන්න පළවෙනිම so first to learn about programming fundamentals, so before we go into programming, we will talk about some important thing called the data form. පළවෙනි කාරණේ තමයි අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මේ data formats ගැන කතා කරා. The programming fundamentals කියවහම මේ data format කියන්නේ තමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. right? ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලෝ අදට මම දන්නේ data format කියන කල්පල තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒකට data formats කීපයක් ගැන අපි කතා කරා. Next, we will be looking at coding and APIs. ඊළඟට අපි coding සහ APIs ගැන කතා කරමු. Right. So next, we will also look at what is going to happen to a job group as a network, and why we are going to learn Python. Right, so that's the coverage that we are going to do. Here are the programming fundamentals. The programming fundamentals that our team knowledge gain development environment make a keyword. එතකොට මෙතනදී අපි ඉස්සල්ලාම data formats එකක් ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඊළඟට අපි කතා කරනවා coding සහ coding මොකක්ද කියනවා පොත ගන්න නැතුව ඇති මේකෙදි coding සහ API කියන අලුත් area එක ගැන අපි කතා කරනවා. ඊළඟට ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ job role එක සහයි අපි Python පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. So let's first go to the data form. Salam අපි data format ගැන කතා කරමු. ඒකට මෙතනදී data formats. So first we'll talk about the data formats. So data formats we will talk about this. JSON, XML, and YAML. But me data formats can come up. So one data format that you have you as a we humans will always know a user interface, right? A user interface, and so first of all. Why you need data form? ඉස්සෙල්ලාම අපි කතා කරන්නේ ඇයි අපිට data format එකක් අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ? Why we need data form? Right. So first is that you need to understand whether you are dealing with humans or machines. Okay? So that's why they say know the audience, right? Who is the data for? So මෙතනදී data එක කාටද කියලා ඉස්සෙල්ලාම දැනගන්න ඕනේ. data එක කාටද කියලා ඉස්සෙල්ලාම දැනගන්න ඕනේ. Right? So here data for humans or machines. අපි ඉස්සලාම දැනගත යුත්තේ තමයි මේක humans ලටද එහෙම නැත්නම් මේක machines වලට. Whether it's for humans or whether it's for machines, right? So ඉස්සල්ලාම ඒක තමයි කරන්නේ. Now this is an output, example output of a Cisco router, which when you give the command show interface. The show interface command එක දුන්නාම අපිට roughly කියන්න අපිට හම්බෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ වගේ output. So it's in clear text, right? So it's not designed for a machine, it's designed for a human. So you can see that this is the kind of output you get, or the data format you get for, which is applicable for humans. So what a overall value of them made for data format කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒක data format කියන්නේ අපිට දැනගන්න ඕනේ මේ data කාටද තියෙන්නේ. ඊළඟට මේක මිනිස්සුන්ට තියෙන්නේ නැත්තම් මේක machines වලද තියෙන්නේ. ඊට අපි බැලුවොත් එහෙම show interface එකේ output එක Cisco router එකකට හරි මම කියනවා ඒක දල වශයෙන් මෙන්න මේකේ clear text. මේක target කරලා තියෙන්නේ මේ data format එක target කරලා තියෙන්නේ humans. හැබැයි ඒවා target කරලා නැහැ machines වලට. Right. ඊළඟට අපි next let's look at another data format. So maybe you are not that familiar with this kind of format. Right? So this is the data format which is for machines, right? For මේ තියෙන්නේ දැන් අපි මෙතන දැක්ක humans ලාගේ data format. And this is make a data format for machines. Right? So it's something that a machine needs. So it's kind of a structured data. It will have a structure. Let's see clearly. It has a structure. So name, description, type, enable, like that. So this is a kind of a structured data for a machine. We're going to make a structured data of machine. So now what you can see is that we are on to programming fundamentals, understand data formats. So there are many data formats for machines. So here we are understanding data formats for machines. JSON, XML, YAML are one of the three data formats used by machines. So don't worry, we will go through all these data formats in greater detail later. Right? So let's see different data formats for different machines. Different formats used by machines. Right? So what about programming the machines the data formats අපිට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අවශ්‍යයි. ඒකට අපි පාවිච්චි කරනවා JSON, XML, YAML වගේ data formats. तर මේ data formats inspired machines වලට බහුල වශයෙන් පාවිච්චි කරන data formats තුනක් තමයි දක්වලා තියෙන්නේ. So you have to make a choice. What is the purpose and who is the audience? So whether it's a machine or a human, or what's the purpose of using the particular format data format. There may data formats in the copy out and decide purpose audience human connected machine. So, if your tool, script or programming language requires a given format, right? You have to use that particular format. So, we පාවිච්චි කරන machine එකේ පාවිච්චි කරන tool එක script එක එහෙම නැත්නම් programming language එක මොකක් හරි format එකක් ඉල්ලනවා එතකොට අපිට ඒ format එක තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ ඒ data format එක තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. හැබැයි tool එක script එක lab program language එකට ඕනම format එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. formats තුනේ data formats තුනේ අපිට يعني ඒක අපිට network engineer design කරන්න පුළුවන්. So if the tool, script or programming language emphasizes that you have to use a particular data format, you have to use that data format. Otherwise, the network engineer himself or herself can decide what is the programming language. So what is the data format that is used. Now, if you take a data format, so whatever the data format we have a format syntax, right? Format syntax. So these are the common elements that the data format, whatever the data format, JSON, XML, YAML will have. එතකොට මේ data format එකක තියෙන යම් elements වගේක් දැන් තමයි අපි common elements කතා කරන්නේ. මේ කතා කරන්නේ. එතකොට so if you take data format, there is a syntax, format syntax, right? So for the first element, common element that the data format will have is the format syntax, right? That is how you lay down or lay out your data format. So you can see there is clearly some way of organizing the data format. How you organize your data format. So you cannot do the way you want, but there is a way of organizing. එතකොට මෙතනදී common elements ගැන කතා කරලා පළවෙනිදා format syntax. ඒකට අපි කොහොමද මේ data එක organize කරන්නේ මේ format එක ඇතුලේ. ඒක තමයි කියන්නේ. Then you have objects representation. right? So object-led representation means you know what is an object. So object-oriented programming, you have to do fundamentals of object-oriented programming. So object is as an element that has characteristics. So you can see there are certain objects that we have to look into in the data format. Right? Right, so we'll go through that later. And there are key value notations. Right, so you can see the keys and the values. So this is a key. So here, if you take this JSON format, key is this one, which is between inverted commas. Right? And there's a colon. So in the left-hand side, most of the time you get the key, and in the right-hand side, you get the value. So you have key value notation. So values can be anything like Boolean, string, right? Objects, right? Lists, numbers, and so on. And you can also have arrays list notation. So the common elements can come up with the data format. So make common elements that ඒකට තියෙන format syntax එකක් කියන්නේ කොහොමද organize වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඊළඟට object representation. Right? Object representation කියන්නේ මේ object එකක් කියන්නේ ඒකට characteristics එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඊළඟට key value representations තියෙනවා. මේ ගත්තොත් එහෙම colon එකට ගන්න පැත්තේ තියෙන key එක දකුණු අත පැත්තේ තියෙන value representation. ඊළඟට arrays and list notation. Right? ඒවත් මේ common elements. Right? So these are some of the common elements. So let's identify the key and the value. The programming වල variables වගේ කතා කරන variables create කරන programming C++ programming කරලා තියෙනවා නේද? first year එකේ කරන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ C++ programming. Have you done C++ programming? What are the programming languages you have done? C++ and Java, or what you have done? Okay. So you have done some amount of Python also. So you know something about programming languages, right? So in programming languages, you create variables, right? Create variables. So like that, there is key. Key means it's kind of a label given to a given set of data. So it's like a name of a variable, right? Say name, right? ID, right? So get student object, you get name, student ID. Like that, there are different variables, right? Or attributes that you have to identify. So like that, here we have keys. Right? So most of the time it will be the left-hand side of your key value pair. Right? This one. Right? So this like what you had. How you describe the attributes of the data in an object, right? එතකොට key එකක් කියන්නේ ඒක label කරනවා data set එකක්. ඒකට ඒක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මේ key value pair එකේ වම් අත පැත්තේ තමයි colon එකේ වම් අත පැත්තේ තියෙන්නේ. ගොඩක් වෙලාට ඒක quotes ඇතුලේ තමයි double quotes ඇතුලේ තමයි කියන්නේ. Right? So it will be always the key will be inside double values. So first of all, it will give a label. Right? Key will give a label to the data, and the value will have the data. Right? So student, the ID, that ID is the label given, and the value usually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the value of the student ID, right? And it will always be right hand side of the code, so it can be any variable type, right? You know there are different variable types, string, integer, array, boolean, metric. එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ පේනවා දැන් key කියන්නේ අපේ label එකක් data එකකට දෙන label එක. දැන් student ID කියන label එකක්. ඊපස්සේ ඒකට තියෙන value එක තමයි දෙන්නේ data එක. එතකොට මෙතන label කරන data එක ළඟට යාට value එකක්. ඒ value එක තමයි value කියලා මෙතන අදහස් කරන්නේ. ඒක හැමදෙස්සම colon එකේ දක්වන එක පැත්තේ. මේ value එක එක types වීමක් string, integer, array, boolean ඒ වගේ types. Okay, so we will not be learning a lot about this data formats, but we will go through the main data formats, right? JSON, XML, YAML as a aid to going to programming, right? For the programmable age, first we'll go through some aspects of XML, JSON, YAML, right? Because this will help you, right? Before we go into programming and setting up our programming environment, you have to learn about these things. So demystify XML. So actually, if you have done XML, you know something about XML. So here, mystify means it's always a mystery. XML means a mystery if you don't know. And how you demystify means you're going to take out the mystery out of the XML. Right? Demystify XML. Demystify XML. Then XML can go with Annona. XML can extensible markup language. So XML stands for extensible markup language. So demystify XML means can mystify කියන්නේ එක ඇත්තටම ඒක අපිට දන්නේ නැහැ. මේ තරම් අපිට සමහරවිට අපි දන්නේ නැති දෙයක්. දන්නේ නැති කරුණක් තමයි XML. Demystify කියන්නේ අපි කොහොමද තෝරගන්නේ කියන්නේ. Right? So if you take XML, so XML means extensible markup language, and it is one of the first data format languages used to program. Data formatting වල පාවිච්චි කරන මුල්ම විදිහේ පාවිච්චි කරන language එක. So this is used by many applications and scripts. The maker product applications are scripts used for. So here it is, so one of the greatest things is that it is human readable. So this data format is human readable, and application will use this data format, that's the XML data format, to store, transfer, and read data. But අපි කියවා මේ data formats කියන එක පාවිච්චි කරන machines ඇතුලේ run වෙන applications. So applications වලට යම්කිසි data එකක් අවශ්‍ය වුණොත් ඒ data read කරනවා නම් අපි හිතමු යම්කිසි database එකක ඊළඟට store කරනවා නම් යම්කිසි data storage එකට ඊළඟට transfer කරන data from one application to another application ඒ වගේ අවස්ථාවලදී අපිට මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්න. So here you can see this XML data format can be used to read data from a database, right? And then write data or store data to a database and transfer data from one application to another application. So it's a human readable data form, right? Or data structure. එතකොට මෙතන XML කිව්වොත් ඒක මුල කාලේදී ආපු data format එකක්. එතකොට ඒක අපි කියන්නේ extensible markup language. මේවා use කරන applications and scripts හැබැයි ඒක human readable. ඒතර applications සහ scripts මොකටද මේක use කරන්නේ? data store කරන්න, data read කරන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි දුන්නට data read කරන්න ඕන නම් යම් database එක read කරලා මේ script එකට දාන්න. right? ඔකට පේනවා දැන් මෙතන. Gigabit Ethernet 2. ඒක enabled let's say IP version 4 related information. So you can see here this XML format is giving about some details about Gigabit Ethernet 2. What is it? Whether it's enabled and then related to IP version 4. IP version 4. So XML, so if you have learned something like HTML. So have you learned HTML? HTML කියන එක පාවිච්චි කරාද? ඉගෙන ගත්තද HTML ගැන? Have you learned HTML? Are you listening or?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So it's like something like HTML. So to make a HTML වගේම එකක් තමයි. And it's designed for the internet like the HTML. So HTML එකේ වගේම මේක design for the internet. XML කියන්නේ HTML කියන්නේ hypertext markup language. මේක extensible markup language. එකත් language එකක්, මේකත් language එකක්. දෙකම markup languages. So both are markup languages, HTML and XML. Right? So similar way of representing. So even in HTML you will find tags. So even in XML there are tags. And then there is a schema. Let's see the schema. This is a schema. And then there are tags. The XML format. You can see lots of tags. And then key value representation. You can see if you take IP, so enable, you have two. So this is the key, enable key, and this is the value true. Right? Then description is the key, and description given as a string. Then name, right, is the key. And then Gigabit Ethernet 2 is the value. Similarly, here for address, you have IP and the net mask. All are IP and net mask are keys, and these are values. So even though we use white space for readability, it is not significant for Excel. It is not significant for Excel. So the XML කියන්නේ මම කිව්වා වගේ ඒක markup language එකක් HTML වගේම. ඒතර HTML එකේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ දකිනවා tags කියනවා තියෙනවා. Head, body, right, over here තියෙනවා. So there are tags in HTML. Similarly in XML also you have tags. Right? But here the tag, you can define the tag. Right? In HTML you have specific tags. Right? Specific tags. So මෙතනදී tags තියෙනවා. A tags අපිට define කරන්න පුළුවන් XML. හැබැයි HTML වල අපිට define කරන්න බෑ. right? මෙතන schema එහෙම නැත්නම් namespace එකක් උඩින්ම දීලා තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට tags තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට key value representation එක තියෙනවා. key එක දැන් බලන්න gigabit කියන්නේ value එක. key එක කියන්නේ name. description කියන්නේ key එක wide area network කියන්නේ value එක string එකක්. Then enable means key and true is the value. It's a boolean. So likewise, IP version 4 address here. So there are white spaces here. There are white spaces have XML significant. So we'll take XML object. We said in a data format, you have some syntax. The data format syntax object representation here. So XML objects, so you can see there are XML objects. So it's related with a set of data. It's related with a set of data. So if you take this portion. Right, so if you take this portion, right? So if you take the payments. Right, so if you take this one, if I take this portion, you can see, so the XML object is a set of data surrounded by the tags. So all related information related to tags is covered by right. So where you have tags, so these things will show you that you have, sorry, this is not the same. Has got stuck. Sorry. So here you can see it's an object, right? It has key value in the object text, right? So here you can see these things, right? These things from name onwards or other all things are right. So all these things are related with the object. Right? Okay, so there you can see right? So this part, from there onwards, this part is actually the part that is involved with the object, right? So the object එක කියලා කියන්නේ මේ කොළ පාටින් දක්වලා තියෙන කොටස. එතකොට මේකේ data ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. So there are lots of data in that, right? And there are key value pairs, right? There are key value pairs. Then if you take the syntax, data format syntax, now we saw the object representation, right? The object representation of the key value notations. Then you have, so if you take the data format, you learned about the format syntax, object representation, key value notation, and you can also learn about the arrays and the list notation, right? Array and the list notation. The arrays are list notation again. So in the XML, you can see the list. So this is a particular example of a list, right? So you can see this portion, you can see a list. So you can have IP net mask, IP net mask. So all these are related to a list. The data format, the format syntax, object representation, key value notation. It was arrays list represent so they represent different XML objects. Right? There are addresses, there are objects not available. There have a repeated element that's it. You can see all the objects that are created are enclosed to the tags. So that is about the XML data format. XML data format. So we'll be going to XML data also. So this is just a rough, to get a rough file. So XML then JSON. So XML stands for Extensible Language, and JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So here, you can see it's also human readable data structure, right? So again, here it is a little bit different from the XML, right? The XML different. Right, so here you see that in XML, we had this interface of we had this interface object. Sorry about it. So here you can see it's the object is the interface, and within that you will find relevant tags. Right? So this is how you represent the XML. The XML interface and object. We calculate the relevant key value pairs. For an object at the interface. Similarly, here you can see Java script object notation. So here right, you get the interface and the name value pairs, right? So same thing but represented in different data form. So what the pain of interface object XML object XML object represent name value key value tags used. Similarly method key values have method tags within inverted commas. So here you have tags. Here you will not have tags. You will have certain format. So the format has curly brackets and square brackets. Curly brackets and square brackets together. Key values are represented using actually separated using the colon. Again, white space is not that significant in JSON. So the method JSON data format tags make it curly brackets square brackets key value representation. That a white space important. XML important. So the object here is surrounded actually by a curly bracket. Sorry. So if you take the JSON object, right? So JSON object is this one, the interface object. So data object has many entries, right? Name, description, so you can see key value pairs are actually separated by a comma. And you can see at the end you have row commas. Everything comma comma. At the end you have. So even in this one, this format, you can have this. This is how you have to have it. Yes, you can have brackets, curly brackets, square brackets, and so on. And then you have comma separation. Until then, at the end, you will have comma. So that based on list XML So then you have YAML, again another data format. So YAML is actually a human readable data structure to store transient data, but it's not something like a markup language, right? So that's why it's a YAML markup language. So it's quite close to human readability. So YAML කියන්නේ YAML in markup language. That's data structure tasks readable. ඒක අනිත් දෙකට වඩා human readable, human understandable. So here they use a minimalist format and it's mostly used in configuration file. So මේ YAML can use format එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන configuration files එක තමයි use කරන්නේ. So here white space will be very significant. Because white space indentation will be used. And you have key value representation. එතකොට මෙතනදී white space එක අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඒක significance එකක් තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට key value pairs තියෙනවා. Again you can represent lists in YAML. Right, so that's about a brief description about the data formats. Right? So they programming the data formats then product introduced. Okay, that's about the data form. So before we go into real programming, setting up our programming environment, we have to go through these programming fundamentals, knowing about data formats. The data format එකක් ගැන දැනගන්න එක වැදගත්. ඊළඟට අපිට කතා කරන්න තියෙන්නේ codings and API. So next we have to talk about the coding and the API. So before we go to that, we will take a 15-minute break. We will take a 15-minute break and come back. Because otherwise it will be too much. Right? So before we go into coding and APIs, we will take a 15-minute break and come back. 15-minute break. So the next area that we are going to discuss is coding and APIs. ඊළඟට අපි කතා කරන්නේ coding සහ API. So coding, you know what is coding. We have done C++, Java, Python, and so on. So you know what is coding. So coding is where you provide some kind of you use some kind of a language which a computer can understand and write down certain instructions to get something done, right? To get something done. So this language can be interpreted by the machine, and so this code can be interpreted by the machine, and it will get down some tasks done for you, right? And you will be providing the basic intelligence for the computer to carry out the task. So mostly this is done to get rid of boring and repetitive work. එතකොට coding කියන එක ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ Java, C++ සහ Python programming පොඩ්ඩක් කරලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මෙතනදී අපි යම්කිසි computer language එකක් පාවිච්චි කරලා මොකක් හරි repetitive boring task එකක් තමයි automate කරන්න හදන්නේ. එතකොට ඒකදී අපි program එකක instruction set එකක් දෙනවා. So මේ program එක නැත්නම් code එක හැකියාව ලැබෙනවා machine එකකට instructions දීලා අපිට අවශ්‍ය වැඩේ කරගන්න. ඊට අමතරව ඒකට basic intelligence එක ලැබෙනවා ඒ වැඩේ කරන්න. ඒක තමයි අපි coding කියලා කියන්නේ. So there are many programming languages in today, right? JavaScript, Python, C, all these things. So these languages are less cumbersome for you to use, right? They are not that difficult for you to start your programming journey, right? එතකොට ඉස්සෙල්ලාම මේ modern programming languages වගේක් තියෙනවා. මේවා අර traditional තිබ්බ Java, C++ වගේ ගොඩක් අමාරු නැහැ, right? කියන්නේ පටන් ගන්න අමාරු නැහැ, කරගෙන යන්නත් අමාරු. ඒවා හරිම flexible. right? ඒ ගණයට තමයි අයිති වෙන්නේ JavaScript, Python, Swift වගේ දේවල්. So if you use a language like C++, to get something useful to be done, you have to at least write down 10,000 lines of code. So, මොනහරි කරගන්න නම් අපිට 10,000 lines of code පාවිච්චි කරන්න වෙනවා. C++ වල. But if you have modern languages like this JavaScript, Python, Swift, you can use already available packages and libraries, and you can reduce the number of lines, coding lines, to 300. So මේ වගේ language එකක් මේ modern language එකක් පාවිච්චි කරලා අපි code එක ලියනවා නම් අපිට 300 lines වලින් මේ වැඩේ කරගන්න පුළුවන්. So coding is not that difficult like it was used to be with C++, Java, and things like that. Right? So you can use them to automate your processes, right? And to create your own tools and workflows. So what are the other modern developer tools that you need to have? Right? You can have Git repositories. So we will go through the Git a little bit later as you go installing our development environment. Git repositories, package management systems, virtual environments. So you know that if you are using most of the time the labs in Linux are done in a virtual environment, right, using VirtualBox. Then you can also use integrated development environment. So you did C++ and Java, most of the time you'll be using an IDE, integrated development environment. So for Java, you may use Eclipse or NetBeans. Right? C++ also has its own C++ IDE environments. So you can use those IDE environments. That අපි modern developer tools පාවිච්චි කරන්න වෙනවා. Git repositories අපි මේක ගැන ගොඩක් discuss කරනවා. අපි especially අපේ development setup එක හදනකොට අපිට මේ Git repositories ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඔබට ඒක පළවෙනි කාරණේ අපි මේවා ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඊළඟට package management systems, right? ඒවා ගැන අපි discuss කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ virtual environments කවුද දානවා? ඔය Linux කරලා තියෙන ගොඩක් වෙලාට virtual box එකක් කරන්නේ. ඒකට ඒක අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. ඊළඟට integrated developer environment එකක් අවශ්‍ය. Right? So as I said, online communities will be of great help, right? Great help for you all. Whether online communities අපිට ලොකු help එකක් බවට පත් වෙනවා. Right? So here you see that these online communities are open source communities, right? Who will share their code. They will share their code through GitHub, right? And then public package repositories. So they will share their own software libraries, right, to encourage the use and reduce duplicate. Right? So they already have shared their own code for others to reuse and not to duplicate them. So these kind of community created libraries are very important when it comes to reducing time and effort. So මේ online communities වල දායකත්වය අපිට මේ අපේ මේ programming network programming වලට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. Especially Angular code share කරනවා. People encourage කරන reuse and ඊළඟට duplication network අඩු කරන්න. So මේගොල්ලෝ ගොඩාක් කාලය සහ ශ්‍රමය අඩු කරනවා. So that is about the modern programming language, right? So you can use the modern programming languages. So whatever the language you are very happy to work with, you can use. But in this module, we will be using Python. Okay. So let's start with what is an API. Right? So API stands for actually application programming interface. So I think I have given it somewhere down the line, right? Application programming interface. So roughly, if I introduce APIs, API are two pieces of software, right, that talk to each other. So API will actually not a piece of software, but API is some component that will enable two software to talk to each other, two pieces of software to talk to each other. So API is something in between. So let me, right? So it's like this. Now you will have an API. So if this is your API, so you just show it as a box, and you have two software. One is this is software one, right? So if you want to facilitate these two software to talk to each other, then you have to use the API. Right? The API will facilitate these two applications communicate with each other and communicate and exchange information between each other. So API is something like that. So API is a component that will facilitate this kind of communication with people. Software දෙකක් අතර communication එකක් කරගන්න නම් අපිට API එක කම්පයිල් කරලා අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. So before machines were enabled to do certain tasks of humans, humans were the only users, right? Only users of software. But if you take today, humans are not the only users of these applications. You can see software consuming software using machines, within machines. So API is nothing other than, it's called the application programming interface. It is the interface for software. Right? So it's an interface for software systems. So it's an engine of innovation. It's an engine of innovation. So as I said, API එකක් කියන්නේ ඒක interface. API means application programming interface. API කියන්නේ application programming interface එක interface එකක්. So මේ interface එක පාවිච්චි කරලා software වලට communicate කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතර ඒ කාලේ අපි දැක්ක මිනිස්සු විතරයි software systems එක deal කරන්නේ. හැබැයි අද මිනිස්සු විතරක් නෙමෙයි අපිට පේන machines applications හරහා communicate කරන්න. එතකොට මේක humans So when it came to humans dealing with computing devices, we needed a human interface. Right? But අපි humans ලා විදිහට computing device එකක් එක්ක interact කරනවා. අපිට අවශ්‍ය වුණ command line interface එක. නැත්නම් web interface එකක්. But they are human interfaces. So we needed a command line interface or web interface as a human interface to computing device. So at that time, to complete a bulk task using computing device, lot of manual work, repetitive work had to be done. Right? Lot of manual repetitive work had to be done, clicking, typing, copying and pasting and other things. Lot of repetitive work. Manual and repetitive work had to be done. හරි එතකොට ඒ කාලේ මේ human interfaces අපි පාවිච්චි කරේ command line interface එක සහ web interface එක. ඒතර මේවා පාවිච්චි කරලා අපිට පුළුවන් වුණා computer device එකක් එක්ක කරගෙන කරන්න. එතනදී අපිට ගොඩක් bulk වැඩක් තිබුණා. ලොකු වැඩක් කරන්න තිබුණා නම් අපිට මේක repetitive වැඩක් සහ ඒක time consuming වැඩක්. right? ඒ වැඩේ කරගන්න අපිට ගොඩක් ශ්‍රමයක් කාලයක් වැය කරන්න තිබුණා. So application programming interfaces came in between. The application programming interfaces අතරමැදට ආවා. So it facilitated for machine-to-machine interfaces. It facilitated the machine-to-machine interface. The machine-to-machine interface make it facilitate the application programming interface from the machine-to-machine interface. So this facilitated automation, the machine-to-machine communication from making automation facilitated. Now you will go to a bank ATM machine. You will withdraw money using your credit or the debit card or whatever. So there you see that you are dealing with not a human, you are dealing with a machine, and that machine will be talking to other machines, right, which are networked in the bank, inside the bank. Right? So bank may be somewhere else, right? So you can see the ATM machine talking to banking machine inside the bank. So that's machine to machine communication, right? Machine to machine communication. So APIs will be used in that case, right? So you can of course go to a bank, produce your national identity card, your bank accounts, the documents, and do your banking. But at the same time, it's very convenient for you to deal with punching any debit card and then get your work done at the ATM machine. So that has facilitated automation. Even if the bank is closed, you can go and transact with the bank. So that is where machine-to-machine interface API application, API programming interfaces will be used. So this will facilitate bulk work using the task and reducing time and effort. So the application programming interface API machine to machine communication facilitate करना interface. तर आधा वो बैंक ATM machine में कितने गिल्ला बैंक का हालात ही बुना बैंक का कितने गंदे कैश डिपॉजिट करना कैश ड्रॉ करना जब करंट है क्या वाले करने मशीन to machine interfaces ATM machine में पता करना बैंक के कैटेगरी machine से तो पता APIs करना कितना तरीका पे But my API thing, but the value that the bank physically give la karan na automate automate. So this is a diagrammatic representation of an API. Yeah, this is your software system and this is my software system. So here I will be asking for data from your system. So I will have to go to your API and then your API will actually send me the required information. So the API ඔයාගේ software system මේක මගේ software system. ඒකට මගේ software system query කරනවා ඔයාගේ software system API එකට. ඊළඟට ඔයාගේ software system API එකට කරනවා මේ system එකට. මේක තමයි රූපයක් වාගේ මේක. So this is a practical example. So there is a website called Yelp, right? Or maybe an app called Yelp, right? Where users can get information of restaurants close by. So here Yelp did not go to make maps. Right? So what they did was they used the Google Maps. So they reused Google Maps in the Yelp and return map data using the Yelp. So today when you are doing your final project most of the time, if you want map information, you can use the Google Maps. So that's the easiest way to go about. Now APIs, you will think that it's very for a Yelp, Yelp kela website ekak. So users start program මේක පාවිච්චි කරලා ළඟ තියෙන restaurant එකක් දාන්න. ඒකට මෙතන Yelp කියන app එක පාවිච්චි කරලා දෙන Google Maps. The Google Maps වලින් return කරන map data API එකක්. but help කියන එකත් API එකත් විතර Google Maps right කරන්නේ. ඒකට Google Maps API එකත් විතර help කරනවා. So here APIs, I would think that using APIs is difficult. But of course you are using APIs to some extent even now. For example, the command line, so in Cisco switches and routers, by using the command line interface, Cisco switches and routers, the command line interface, right? So that is a human interface, but it's a user interface more than an API, but it's some kind of a API, right? So these kind of command lines are used in many systems. So some examples are given here. Maybe you are asked to enter on this one. So this is one expect script that is used. So now simple network management protocol is another API that will be used. Where you can get information from network devices or monitored devices. So if you want to build an application to monitor your network, right, you can use SIM, right? So here it's also an API. Rather than network management protocol and use monitoring system එකක් හදනවා. So එතනත් API එකක් තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. Then I'm not sure whether you are acquainted with SOAP. Here also machine to machine communication happens, right? Using SOAP protocol. So that's called the Simple Object Access Protocol. So of course it was developed by Microsoft for web services. That is, you're going to access information using the web. So here they will be using HTTP as and XML. So this is of course sometimes thought to be complex and rigid. But of course, it's a way of communicating, right, between, say, different systems, right? Different systems. It's open for communication. Right? The simple object access protocol is web services use information transfer and API එකක් අපි පාවිච්චි කරන. ඒතර මෙතන ඊට අමතරව HTTP සහ XML පාවිච්චි කරනවා. Then there is also another API called the representational state transfer REST. So here they will be using simpler web services than SOAP. So it's again a web service, but used for building simpler web services. So here also they will be using HTTP. So here it is also an API. REST and a representational state transfer කියන එකකට ඒකත් API එකක් තමයි. right? ඒකත් API එකක් තමයි. ඒක simpler than SOAP, right? මෙතනත් HTTP තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. So ඒක API framework. Now you can see there is another framework which is using RPC, remote procedure call. right? Remote means a remote system will be using information of another system. So here they will be using certain formats, data. That's why we talked about the data formats. That is XML and JSON data formats along with the remote procedure form. මෙතනදී තවත් පාවිච්චි කරන එක තමයි remote procedure call එක XML සහ JSON පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඒකට ඒවා data formats. ඒවා පාවිච්චි කරනවා. communicate කරන process එකක් තමයි remote procedure call එක කරන්නේ. Then there is a new protocol called the NetConf, Network Configuration Protocol. So it's going to replace the SNMP, which is a bulk protocol. And here it will be using SSH and XML. Right, so again, NetConf configuration with XML. Right? So, and SSH at the transport level, and XML will be the data format that will be used. So the NetConf can a network configuration protocol make a SNMP replace करना. මේකෙදී ඔබට පේන transport layer එකේදී SSH පාවිච්චි කරන XML තමයි data. Then there is REST-conf. So here they are using REST APIs. That's why it's called REST-conf. Here also, here it supports both XML and JSON. XML and JSON. So the transport they will be using HTTP, and you can see data formats can be XML or JSON. Now, if you take the APIs, the REST-conf can cover protocol lab, REST APIs පාවිච්චි කරනවා. එතකොට මේකේ data format එක XML සහ JSON. ඊළඟට transport layer පාවිච්චි කරනවා. HTTP. ඉස්සෙල්ලා පාවිච්චි කරේ SSH, then පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ HTTP. So next we'll move into API maturity. So here now, as I said, network engineers don't have to be expert programmers. The network engineers later expert programmers are in our software කරන කට්ටිය වගේ programming skill අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. Right? Because this is because there are APIs. APIs නිසා So APIs like SOAP are difficult to learn. So in the last semester, I taught with SOAP as well as REST. Right? But this semester, I'm not going to teach SOAP. Right? So we learned. So APIs like SOAP is not easy to deal with. So you have to use REST. Right? So you can use REST APIs with standardized data formats, right? Like JSON. So here you can use REST APIs, JSON, and easy programming language. So modern programming language like Python. So this will make your programming task much easier. So the overall software කරන කට්ටිය specialization කරන කට්ටිය වගේ expert programming skills අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට මෙතනදී ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ගොඩාක් වැදගත් වෙනවා අලුතෙන් තියෙන RESTful APIs, right? ඒ වගේම standard data formats. ඒ වගේම අලුත් modern programming languages, Python. ඒවා පාවිච්චි කරලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට programming කරන්න පුළුවන්. There are many APIs, so these APIs and the programming languages have matured, so they can now cater to the requirements of the network engine. So you can get a lot of things done with very little amount of code, and you can automate repetitive and labor-intensive work, right? Which will make the network engineer more effective to do other work. There are many APIs සහ programming languages වල maturity එක නිසා ඔබන්ට පුළුවන් powerful වැඩ කරන්න coding මේ කතා කරන code, right? It automate කරන්න පුළුවන් repetitive සහ labor intensive tasks වල අපිට පුළුවන් අපේ කාලය සහ ශ්‍රමය වෙන අවශ්‍ය කරන කාර්යක්ෂමතාවය වැඩි කරන දේවල්ට පාවිච්චි. So the your future role as a network engineer, you are not going to become a software developer like your software specialization friends are going to be. Your software specialization software specialist so here, but you will be developing some coding skills and learn to use some developer tools. So you will be using developer tools and coding skills to become more capable. Capability coding skills set developer tools developer tools could have part. API, RESTful APIs, Python language, data formats. Your capabilities very good. So the network engineers come. But so network engineers will become network engineers, but they will be more capable, right? More capable of deploying and operating the network. So because they are working with new technologies, right? So the network engineers software engineers right? Have a sharpen skill set. Product they will automate capabilities deployment and operations. So now employers will value your expertise. So when you apply for the job, they will ask, they will get your skills assessed. They will know real network engineer, right? Whether you are able to design, deploy, and operate your network in a very efficient manner. And you are very effective. The employees are balancing skill set. Programmability skill set. APIs Python So if you know to do all these things, it will be very valuable for you as well as for your employer. Product valuable thing. So this will enable you, the network engineer, to become more innovative. networking is innovative benefit skills. And for that purpose, we'll be using Python. Of course, there are other languages like JavaScript, JavaScript, and so on. So we will be using Python. Of course, there are other network engineers who use other languages, but Python is selected because of domain applicability, power and flexibility, and platform flexibility. अगर මෙතනදී අපි Python කියන programming language තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. සමහර network engineers වෙන language පාවිච්චි කරනවා. මෙතනදී ඒකට හේතුව තමයි මේ domain applicability, power and flexibility සහ platform flexibility කියන එක. So if you take the domain applicability for Python, there is a very good online community. That's important. So you can also contribute, you can leverage on the contributions as well. This will save your time and energy, right? So that's the reason that we are going with Python. Right? The Python එකක් තමයි domain applicability. ඒ කියන්නේ මේකේ online community ගොඩාක් develop කරලා තියෙනවා. So අපිට මේකත් එක්ක යන එක ගොඩක් අපිට වාසිදායකයි. අපිටත් contribute කරපුවම අපිට අනිත් contribute කරන එකෙන් අපිට ප්‍රයෝජන ගන්න පුළුවන්. The next one is the power and flexibility. So this Python is a very good programming language for networking. Right? So you don't have to start from scratch to do anything. You can do anything you want using the power of the Python language. It's a very diverse and rich developer ecosystem. Either power or flexibility developer may Python language programming language. හැමදේම මුලින් ඉඳලා පටන් ගන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. ඒක කරා level එකකින් පටන් ගන්න අපිට සියල්ල කරන්න. Then platform flexibility. So the other one is the platform flexibility. Python can run on Windows, macOS, and Linux. So on anything, on a server or a virtual machine or a container in the cloud, which is iOS devices. Python can run on many platforms. Right? The Python කියන එක අපිට product platforms වල run කරන්න පුළුවන් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඒක නිසා අපිට Python ඉගෙන ගන්න එකේ වාසිදායකයි. අද මම lecture එක එතනින් නවත්තන්න. හේතුව තමයි අපි 1 hour එකක් කරා වෙන්ස්ටේ. ඒක නිසා මම එතනින් නවත්තන්න. හරි එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ attendance mark කරන්න ශක්තිය. මම ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ lectures සහ lecture recordings සියල්ල upload කරා Google Classroom එකට. lecture slides ටික. ඒකට ඒක ඔයගොල්ලෝ use කරන්න. Google Classroom, right? So do we have any questions? Okay, so next week, Friday, we'll do 4 hours, right? Because, so we'll only have the lecture on Friday morning, right? So please log in by 8:30. So we'll go till 12:30 with a small break in between. So mark your attendance and then bind. Right. Thank you very much.